Right. So today we're going to talk about DJI, right? Dajiang Innovation. In terms of companies, right? We've seen the big national companies. There's a lot of I don't know. Like Huawei was very famous because of the 5G technology. But when you think about the most famous companies and the biggest names and Tencent and Alibaba, they're much more sort of inward looking. But DJI is one of those companies that is an international presence, and they're dominating the industry in which they are in.
I think you'd be surprised to find that if you actually mention DJI, it might not come across as a Chinese company to most people. Honestly.
Yeah, exactly.
Like for myself, right? Honestly, I never knew DJI was sorry for ignorance, but I never knew DJI was a Chinese company until I think last year we were talking about this.
Yeah.
And I started to realize, oh my god, DJI is a Shenzhen-based company, right?
Yeah,
Founded by the founder is pretty young. I think he's in his mid-30s.
Yeah, he's something like that.
Yeah, he's pretty young, right? He founded it sort of, it's a typical tech entrepreneurial story, right? Starting a company in your uni campus, in your hostel and so on, it's amazing, right? I think we'll go to that story in a bit, but let's just give a bit of introduction to DJI, as you said, right? So Dajiang Innovation Technology is a global leader in developing small unmanned aerial vehicles. That specialize in taking sort of videos, pictures for hobbies, for businesses, whatever, right? It's really there's a really high penetration rate for retail, as well as nowadays a bit more minor commercial application, right? And I would say they are probably the largest manufacturer of consumer drones. So the company was founded in 2006 by Frank Wang, and they released their first drone in the Chinese market in 2008, and in 2009 they expand internationally.
They really started, right, they're founded in 2006, sort of, as you said, the story of university idea by Frank Wang, really passionate about sort of this form of electric helicopters and electric sort of airplanes and everything that he played as a kid growing up. And then he really got into it, had an idea during uni, established it, created his company. But it was not until 2013 that it really started ramping up, right? And in 2013, they started, making, 400% year on year sort of increase in their sales. Because in 2013, there was the model Phantom quadricopter that was launched. And the Phantom model was really their big breakthrough.
It was very well received, right? And I think from that period onwards, from 2013 onwards, all the way through 2015 to 2018, 2019, there was this whole wave of, just consumers finding drones fascinating, right? You started seeing drones in performances, in China, right? You started seeing drones in National Day parades, in the Beijing Olympics. Was it there in Beijing Olympics? Sorry, not Beijing Olympics, but in National Day parade, in all over different countries, you start seeing drone performance, right? On national, on national TV shows and so on. And that, I guess that helped to push the popularity of drones amongst consumers in the back end, and consumers started feeling like, oh my god, wow, this is something that I can afford, and it's a different kind of tool. And one of the key drivers, the attractiveness of that, the refreshing, kind of new toy for people that helped to boost the company's growth. And by 2014, they actually got 500 million revenue, right?
Yeah.
And that just went up exponentially, right? In 2015, they got about close to $1 billion, and I think by 2018, I think they reached about $3 billion. Yeah, and they have 3,000 over employees. It's valued at $15 billion in its last funding round in 2018. So it's a bit different from all the tech companies where it's valued like hundreds of 10 billion, 5 billion, 1 billion, whereby it's still doing like 2 million revenue, 10 million revenue with a huge valuation. This is a company whereby they reach a 15 billion valuation at 3 billion annual sales, right?
Yeah.
And very often, I think maybe we can safely say that I don't know the numbers, but I think it's probably I'm confident to say that this the DJI is probably breaking even, or really just churning in cash because they haven't had need to fund or raise any funds in the past few years. No, but one thing I want to say was one thing to highlight is that as compared to a lot of the other tech founders, whereby they went through multiple rounds of fundings, multiple series of fundings, Frank Wang, who is the founder of DJI, actually still owns a significant stake, right? He owns 45% of the company.
Yeah.
So that to me is pretty amazing. It really shows that, you know, he knows this company will do well, number one. Number two, it just shows that this company is not one that's cash burning like crazy, like a lot of the other tech companies, right? It's not one that's growing at all costs. Also because the market's a bit more niche. And they are probably making a good profit from every drone that they're selling, and they are one that know how to bootstrap their growth.
Right, those are the numbers, a little bit of history about DJI. Today, the main question, and I think what we're really interested in, is like, how did they come to be, you know, the leader of drones? And you know, there are tons of like different reasons for this, and I think the number one that I want to start off with is obviously the incredible hardware that they have is accompanied by incredible software, right? The tech of DJI is on point. And this is one thing that has multiple layers to it. Because first of all, we've talked about the Phantom, the quadrocopter being, you know, the massive success, and that really sort of kick-launched DJI into this, you know, multi-billion revenue company from there. But the reason for those, it's not just the fact that obviously the ergonomy of the design of the quadrocopter, which is sort of like, today when you think about a drone, you just think about that quadrocopter sort of look, right? More than just the fact that they really had the design nailed, and I don't know if they're the one who came up with this design. I'm sure this design existed. They might have just perfected it or whatever. But more than this is like, I've used DJI before, and I've flown electric airplanes when I was younger, and I crashed my electric airplane 2 minutes after I had it, right? Because it's super hard to control it, because it's, you know, like you have to take off. It's like, and a lot of the niche market that existed for like electric sort of, you know, things that flew, that could be airplanes and helicopter, it was a lot of you know, very technical, because it was hard to sort of manage and everything. And can you imagine if you're paying like $500, $1,000 or $1,000+ for this gadget, essentially, or for something that you want to take pictures with? You don't want to think about even crashing it, right? And one of the things that DJI does amazingly was the software part of it, because I think obviously, you know, when Frank Wang founded his company, was on the genius idea that he had about, you know, how to settle down the drone to be able to maintain itself in the air and everything, and the stabilization and everything, and that was amazing, you know, and the hardware that goes behind it. But the software is also like, it's also what enables the retail market and the retail industry to really get familiar with it, right? Like, you don't want a product that is super technical that only a handful of people can use. You want something that a push of a button, the drone takes off. You know, if you want to bring it back, it comes back and then slowly, you know, like sort of land by itself, and it's super smart. It's integrated with your smartphone. The app is amazing to use. You know, like all of those little details, I think, is really why DJI was super successful, and they really focused on both parts, right? They didn't, because there are tons of drone companies out there that make super technical stuff, and they're amazing at it, right? They will sell you maybe very special parts, especially when you see drone racing, you know, those are like, you know, very nerdy stuff. But most of the people who want to use a drone for like regular usage, they don't know how all of those works, right? They just want a product that works.
I think the interesting thing, I think the interesting thing that, you know, is definitely what you brought up, right? It's the ease to use for consumers, you know, and I think that helped break the market, because historically we know drones have been around for ages, right? It's not the first time drones been on the market, and the thing is that, but the issue is that drones in the past were mostly used in military, whereby you probably need a bit of special training for it, and then on commercial application is a lot less as compared to now, just because
Yeah.
drones were a lot more complicated. Like you said, the interface is difficult, right? Not every you can't pick up a drone in the past and just fly it, right? You'll probably crash it because of how the interface is. You probably need a bit of training. But for DJI, I mean, look, a kid can fly the drone, right? You just need to show him once. This is how it moves. This is how it comes back. This is how you make it come back.
Yeah.
That's it, right? I think that's the amazing thing, right? You just need to teach it once. It's so easy to pick up.
Yeah, I've heard some people just left it in the jungle and then went to look for it and somehow it came back.
Yeah. You mean the kid or the drone?
I'm talking about you.
No, but honestly, this, like you said, right? Knowing the customer's needs, and that is sort of what's in the DNA of a company, I would say, right?
Yeah.
If you think from Bro's perspective, they saw the demand for drones in this consumer market. They saw the need for businesses. They saw the need for military because technology is already there. And all they did was they launched the right products, right? They launched Mavic in 2016, which is the which is the consumer version. And at the same time, they launched the industrial version, which is I think called Matrice, right? And with that, because these two models are so interchangeable, they're so easy to use. Someone who knows how to fly a Mavic would easily know how to fly a Matrice. Right, so when they need to use it for work, the first thing you think about, okay, why not we use a drone, right, to take an aerial photo, to do applications instead of getting a helicopter? It's way cheaper, and you don't need to train someone for it. So naturally, companies would be like, okay, for construction purposes, for surveillance purposes, surveillance of forests, surveillance of farmland, for agriculture, so on, right? I think that interchangeable of not having to teach and train your consumers to use certain product is one of the key success, one of the key reason why they were able to achieve such commercial success. And if you think about it,
that's the second layer of it that I really wanted to focus on as well. It's like, right, so the first one is obviously the mix of hardware and software with the retail consumer in mind, and which is almost the Apple-like, right, version of the drone. But the second part of that tech advantage that we're talking about is also the fact that, when you think about drones, it's nice to fly something, right? And you say people like it. It's nice to fly something, but the commercial application and all of those come from also the camera technology that they enabled, right? The gimbal, the stabilization of the cameras within the drone, because the drone is like flying, you don't want your pictures to be all shaky, you don't want your videos to be all shaky. So like the gimbal technology that they perfected and that they're providing the consumer, it's like when you see those, before, when you saw an aerial shot of anything, that was only in movies, right? But now like a holiday sort of album that you share with your friends and families might contain aerial shots because you had a Mavic do that for you, and it enables part of, like, I don't know, for me it's incredible. You can go on a hike, and before you could just take pictures of the mountain, which sort of really lose that dimension of the grandeur of where you are at. But if you can take it from the air, you can really go with the drone and really show how small you are on the peak of the mountain, those kind of shots. And you don't even need to have pro sort of material for it, well, pro quote unquote, because I mean a drone is not cheap either, but it really enabled all of those things. And the camera technology that they sort of enabled, they're not just a drone company, they're really just this form of, they really, as you said, they really focused on the needs of the market and what can be, what people needs are, and then perfected that. And I think that's the second layer of the tech advantage that I think, it's not just about the tech in drones, it's also the tech in the camera and the stabilization and the gimbal technology that they sort of integrated within their drones and the software and all of that really makes them, a huge company, and then like an amazing company for them.
But inherent, there's one thing we need to admit. I think they have this innate advantage of being a Chinese company. And what I mean by that, don't misunderstand me, is that being in China, or being in Shenzhen specifically, they have this insane advantage of being able to go to market fast, being able to test a prototype. And honestly, if you think about drones, it's engineering play, right? There's a lot of aerodynamics to test, there's a lot of different kind of parts you need to create and test out while you're creating a prototype. And if you have seen what Shenzhen is like. It's called like the Silicon of the US, but honestly, I would say it's probably quite different from of Silicon Valley of the US, right? Silicon Valley is very much focused on software.
You mean the Silicon Valley of China?
Yeah, sorry. Silicon Valley of China. Sorry, I'm so sorry. My mind's not working. But yeah, sorry. So, but Silicon Valley is so different because Silicon Valley is very much focused on software, right? There's so much software talent and software skills there. But Shenzhen is not just a place of software. It has the ability to manufacture as well. So, from the point of having a design of putting out the best software and then manufacturing, right? Sending it to a manufacturer and producing a prototype. If you have seen videos or have heard of stories, it probably takes like, 6 to 12 hours for you to produce the design and send it to the factory to produce and collect your prototype in the afternoon. Whereas if you compare it to in the West, in some other places, sending out your design and collecting prototype would probably take you 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or whatsoever, right? Because the manufacturing
because you're sending it to Shenzhen, right? So like if you're in Shenzhen itself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there is this huge advantage.
Yeah, but to clarify on that point, right? Like I mean, definitely Silicon Valley is still called Silicon Valley because obviously of the hardware sort of advancement that was correlated with, No, right. But like, because I mean, Silicon Valley was, because of the silicon, the microprocessor and the computer. So at the very beginning of it, it's true today when you talk about Silicon Valley, it's much more sort of like synonym with avocado toast and the California vibe of tech nerds and much more software companies, because obviously the big names today is a lot of software, although Apple is still like the most valued company in the world and they're obviously known for their hardware. But yes, I think Shenzhen and that mindset, as you're right, is like the hardware, and it's very, very, there are big malls with like tons of stalls, like thousands, and I'm not kidding here, like thousands of little stalls where you can buy components, right? You can buy conductors, you can buy resistance, you can buy like chips, motherboard, you can buy all of those things that you can make literally, there are tons of videos online on YouTube about, I made my own phone today in Shenzhen, I made my own, insert device here thing in Shenzhen. And it's really that sort of turnaround that you're gaining with the proximity plus the huge and very efficient logistic chain that we've talked about in previous episode in China, which really enables them to, as you said, like turn around quickly to the market's need, right?
And one last thing, right? I think this is something that's very clear. China is a country, or Shenzhen is a country with a huge pool of highly skilled engineers, and this is something that Tim Cook said himself, right? There was this whole big hoo-ha about, we need to bring US companies out of China. There are many places you can bring it to. You can bring it to US, India, whatsoever. But honestly, I think Tim Cook said it himself. You'll be amazed that there are things in China, in Shenzhen, whereby you cannot replicate anywhere else, just because of how the ecosystem is, just because the whole pool of talent there that's able to react, that's able to do the work you need them to. You can't find such high quality talent in any other countries that's so easily accessible in the same zone as your other manufacturers, right? It's an innate advantage that you can't just say you move your whole company to India and be able to produce the results. There will be a lot more logistics and a lot more hurdles along the way if you do that. So this is one. I think this is one of the key geographical and manufacturing advantage that DJI has, being located in China, that that helped them to produce, having a slight cost advantage, having that quick turnaround, and being able to produce and come to market and capture the right opportunities.
Another reason why I think DJI is very interesting and very fascinating and exciting is that the drone market is only going to grow and grow, right? Right now, we talked about, obviously you using it as a consumer, there are more and more commercial application. We talked about sports event using a lot of drones as well for aerial shot that can be cheaper than to do with a helicopter. Even in movies now, because of like how nimble and how flexible the drone can be. And then, in commercials, like now tons of commercials are also using drones to do a lot of the shooting. So, but those are still like much more sort of video and, sort of taking pictures type of stuff. Photography, sorry. I was looking for the word photography and I was like, photography related. But drones can also be used as, transportation and also, like delivering. And we're seeing now Amazon using drones to, and they're doing those testing. It was approved by the regulators in certain cities across the US. Definitely, more than just you receiving your Amazon package for drones, it's, there are a lot of medical application, right? Bringing essential needs or bringing, like medicine quickly to, remote areas for first aid or for a first response sort of situation, especially if you're lost in the forest or you get hurt in the forest or you get hurt skiing and you're on the top of the mountain and it's really hard to get to you. All of those applications could be amazing, and and those are not approved yet. Those are not settled yet. You don't see drones bringing your Amazon package on in the mainstream yet, but it will happen because it's almost like I almost feel like it's inevitable.
Just put some numbers in here, right? I think currently the drone market is expected to grow to 60 billion in the next 10 years.
Yeah.
Right. Just because the drone penetration now, drone market penetration now in urban and rural market is less than 5%. Right. And going forward, just because of commercial application, we'll probably reach 10, 20 or 50% in certain regions. And that opens up immense opportunities. Now, like you said, right, Amazon package delivery. And then next you have food delivery. Imagine you have maybe we might not see the day whereby you have drones flying everywhere. When you open your window and you're like, oh my god, the drone just hit the bird. That shouldn't happen ideally, but I think there will be more application of drones going forward for delivery of goods because for the past 5 years the biggest issue that people are trying to solve is how to reduce last mile delivery costs. Because that's the most costly part of transportation, of delivering goods. And as e-commerce gets more, as the growth of e-commerce slows, businesses will think of ways how to extract a bit more margin, how to reduce a bit more cost. And I think naturally this will be an area whereby they will find the best and most efficient way to deliver their goods in the most timely manner and in the most cost efficient manner. And drone is probably a natural solution.
No, for sure. And finally, I think one of the only sort of point that will be interesting to watch out for as well is that with the growth of this market, which would be highly impacted by essentially the regulations around it, right? I think a lot of the technology is there for a lot of things, but with all things, it's like what you said, we don't want to see just drones everywhere. First of all, talk about visual pollution, but also about all the different sort of challenges that will come with it because of security concerns. You already see it now that at events, it could have, privacy concerns where someone could be looking into your life essentially with a drone and it can be very creepy. And all of those sort of concerns that would need to be highly regulated, and then to see, as drone gets more popular, how do you stop a drone, right? Now you're seeing eagles and other, birds, sort of trained to take out drones, especially in football stadiums and sporting events where those are not, official drones, being there because it can be dangerous for the athletes, but also for a lot of other reasons. And you're seeing more and more of this sort of like, okay, before we can allow drones to just unleash them, and sort of speak, right? We need to find a way to how are we ever going to control if they get taken sort of out of hand, and we have to have a plan to be able to manage them, to regulate them in a very specific way, right? That'll be it. I think there's tons to to talk about, obviously, for the drone market. And, we wanted to give a quick overview about DJI, sort of introduce the brand to people who didn't know, or maybe people who bought a DJI but didn't know that they were a Chinese company, or just, if you're interested about DJI in general. You can find us at Productive Lazy Sundays on Instagram, on Twitter, and on YouTube, and obviously in podcast form. And yeah, we'll see you guys in the next episode.